What's up, John? How are you?
And how you doing, sis? How's it going?
I'm doing well. I want to first thank you for being a part of our interview with the Black female landscape and nature photographers. You are our first highlight of the Black men that are in landscape and nature photography. So I'm so excited, and beyond excited, actually. You and I had a chance to go out and take some pictures.
Absolutely.
Um, yeah, at one point, and I was like, that was so cool. But enough of that. I just want to, first say, welcome, and I'm gonna take this opportunity right now to let you go ahead and introduce yourself to our viewers.
Well, first, let me say thanks for having me, ladies and lady. Um, Really uber excited about being here. I'm John Bannister. I'm a native of Brooklyn, New York, but I currently live in Charlotte, North Carolina. Been here for about 20 years. Um, been a photographer, quote unquote, professionally since about 2016, but I've been taking pictures as long as I can remember. And again, I'm happy to be sitting here with a friend who is so awesome and showed me San Diego when I was there. Yeah, and I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. Yay. So we're going to go ahead and dive into more about you so that people will get to know you. We are such a small percentage in this genre, and it's just so exciting for me to meet people, meet other photographers, and even what you just mentioning, uh-oh, I think we're okay. The video.
We're good.
Okay. There we go, recording. This is so good because the way that we met, social media has a way of bringing people together that live, miles away. And when you had reached out to some photographers here in San Diego, like, hey, I'm coming to San Diego, anyone want to, shoot with me or show me some spots? And I mean, I'm like, anybody reach out?
Yeah, it was an awesome. But I think it was there about 4 days. You again, you were amazing. You showed me some things that I probably wouldn't have seen on my own. You love to shoot, and I think that first night we shot until about 2 o'clock in the morning, which is not fun with jet lag. But it worked out, and then we did it again the next day. And I think I even had to say to you at one point, like, "Okay, I'm out of gas," and
I can keep going. I'm like, you can sleep when you get home or sleep on the plane.
Well, we had an awesome time. And like you said, being able to kind of connect with people who do the same things that you do and enjoy it, it's a blessing. It's an absolute blessing.
So let's start off by also asking you, what first got you interested in photography?
It's interesting. Even, I never did print, like film. However, I did do the disposable cameras.
Stop.
I would buy those all the time. Some of my favorite pictures are still that I still have are from disposable cameras, and I would just get them all the time when I was younger and just take pictures. And then I had an uncle who gave me an old black and white camera. And I didn't give me like one roll of film. So I never really did the film thing, but I did take some pictures with that. Mm-hmm. And I always said, well, one day I'm going to get into photography. And when kind of the digital explosion happened, I said, this might be the right time. And back in maybe about 2014, I bought my first DSLR, and it's been on since then. It's been going.
Yeah. So what do you enjoy capturing most?
Well, I enjoy being out and open, being in a space where it's just me and my camera, and making something creative, or just finding an image that I can look at later on and say, wow, I did that. That's I think that's the moment that keeps me coming back to photography and going out and taking pictures.
And with that being said, and you were talking about the camera and starting out with the disposable camera. For those of you who are not familiar with disposable cameras, you may want to Google it. It might be in Wikipedia. We shall continue on. A lot of people, and then you got into the DSLR. And one thing I make sure that I don't ask is, well, what's the brand? Because, a lot of people will say, what camera do you have? What camera? But, I'm going to ask you and get your opinion. Is it the camera or the photographer's eye that makes the difference in the image?
Well, I would definitely say it's the photographer's eye. Now, the caveat that I will add to that is that I'm a proud Canon shooter, and I have been for a very long time. And I have no intentions of changing. But I think it's your eye, and I think it's not just your eye, it's the feeling that you get. I actually teach a photography course at the university that I work for, and my students use their phones for the most part.
Okay.
And I tell them all the time, it's not always about the equipment. Of course, there are some limitations, with any device, but it's really about your eye and what you see and how you capture what you see. That makes a great image.
Yeah, that's really true. I mean, because we all know with today's technology and the latest phone and all the bells and whistles, it's like everybody is a photographer now,
Photographer.
and everyone always thinks, well, I need to have the greatest and the newest of this so that I can be the world famous photographer. But just like as you said, it's your eye.
Right.
Whether you're using, a film camera or a phone, it's still your eye. So let me ask you this. What do you find to be the hardest part about photography?
Um, I would probably say for me, the
Yeah.
hardest part for photography right now is deciding on a single image. So if I'm trying to work on some prints, or if I'm putting together a portfolio, deciding on an image is probably the hardest thing for me, because I tend to like a lot of my images.
Yeah.
So it's always hard for me to choose. And as I'm trying to move into more of a print business in the next couple of years, it's difficult because I have images that I like, but they may not be sellable images, but I still like them. So going through that process and culling images and things like that has always been a challenge for me.
So since you said that, I'm going to kind of go into this direction. We have the images that we like. We have the images that we love. So when you are, back and you've been out taking a shoot, do you go through your images and you're like, love, like?
I'm terrible because there have been times I've been out and I've taken 200-300 images, and I get back and I go through them, and that little 5-star thing in Lightroom, I would
Mm-hmm.
probably star about, out of 200, I'll probably star 180, and then I have to kind of sleep on it and go back and kind of bring that number down. It's hard for me because I think when you take an image, or at least for me, when I take an image, it brings me back to that moment.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
it's hard for me to let go of anything. Like the delete key is not my friend, but I've been trying to use it.
The what is it? What?
Delete key, deleting an image is
Oh,
never.
deleting.
I try.
Yeah, I never do that. I am guilty as well. Because you might see something later.
Exactly.
It might not fit that flavor then, but later you might be like, wow,
Come back to it. Yep.
that's cool. So as we're talking about landscape and you being out and capturing the images, is there anything, as far as areas or, where you're like, oh, I always have to go do a sunset, or I have to go to the mountains? Is there any specific area where you're always find yourself drawn to capturing your images?
Not really.
Okay.
And I know we're going to talk about a project that I did in a little bit, but
Mhm.
I tend to go to a location and then work to find something.
Okay.
You know, I'll book a trip and say, okay, I'm gonna leave this trip with 4 or 5 images, and it becomes my job to find 4 or 5 locations wherever I'm at to have an image that I'm proud of.
Hmm. Um, with your traveling, and again, we'll touch on that. Um, Stay tuned, people. We have a good project that he does, so we don't go nowhere. How has photography shaped the person that you are today?
It's definitely helped me keep my peace, especially in these times with COVID and everything. It's helped me
Yeah,
kind of
elaborate on
my
even with
sanity.
that. How
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, it really, really calms me. There's nothing like being behind the camera and just you and nature, or you and I say nature, but if I'm in the middle of a city and let's say I'm taking a picture of a building and it's just you and your camera looking in that building, that's one of the most peaceful places I can be at that time.
Yeah, yeah, I totally agree. I do have to say, when you're in San Diego, um, although we're landscape photographers and we're out and about, that image that you captured in the hotel, that was fire.
I
That's fire.
love it.
I'm gonna
That
have to post that, as part of this interview. But that was like, it was just like, whoa. But again, because we are out and about in nature, and you can, chime in, do you feel that that makes you more attentive to details, no matter where you are?
I'll say it can. It's hard for me to speak to that question for myself personally. I'll say that it can. And I think I just, because it's so natural for me to look for detail now, I think
Mhm.
it's a little harder for me to answer. But I think if you spend a lot of time out in nature and, just different sceneries, you tend to pick up things that people won't. So if you're somewhere else, like I can walk around my college campus, the college I work at, I can walk around campus and see something. And I have an image that I just took a couple of weeks ago. Um, it's a tree, and I know every fall this tree has the most beautiful orange leaves.
Oh,
I wait on that tree every year.
yeah.
Yeah, like I time it, and the funny story behind that is I took a picture. I got my picture this year, and then
Mhm.
I was talking to one of my colleagues,
Uh-oh, you froze.
and just in general conversation, I said, "Hey," and she kind of looked at me like, "What do you mean? What am I wearing?" I said, "Do me a favor, go outside and look at that tree, and then wear something to match it." And we just had the next day we had an informal shoot, and it went perfect.
Cool.
Because just being able to kind of see something and then see past what it could be
Mhm.
is I think every photographer has that.
So let's go into this question. What or who inspires you?
Um, People like you. I mean, I say that kind of tongue in cheek, but people that have a passion for this. You stop it. People who have a passion for photography, for seeing things out of the ordinary. And even if you're in an ordinary space, I think as photographers, we see things through a different lens. Not just through the lens of a 24/70, but we just see things through a different lens. And being able to meet and kind of interact with people that helps me hone my craft more.
Um, that's cool, and thank you. So your project, I want
Yes.
to jump into that because I have some other questions, but I think going into your project um, will keep us, from venturing off, because I think the answers to some of these questions might have to do, might be answered from the project or relate to it. You know what I'm trying to say.
Exactly.
But I want to let those watching know that John, when he says he travels, and he is the author of a book that he is going to share with us. I think his project is just crazy cool. When he gets out, he gets out. A lot of times people are like, where are you going? Or they don't want to get outside of the box or outside of the comfort zone. And I'm one for telling people, get comfortable with being uncomfortable. There's so much more to see, and it's just awesome out there. So let's talk about your project.
Okay. Well, couple of years back, I kind of set out to do something a little different. And what I decided to do is that I was going to spend one night in every state in our country. Um, so as I started to, go through that process, it became, well, hey, I could probably do something a little bit more with this. And I decided to create a book. And the book is called America Through My Eyes. I don't know if you can see it. I'll hold it up a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
It's called America Through My Eyes. And the project itself kind of chronicles the journey. It took me about 5 years to get this done, but I spent one night, at least one night in every state in Washington, D.C. And I kind of captured that project in a photo book that I put together, I want to say 2 years ago now. About 2 years ago now, yeah.
So it started 5 years ago?
It took me 5 years to do. I probably started it in 2015.
Okay.
I probably started it in 2015.
So
But
did you go to how did you know which city you wanted to go to in each state? I'm sure some people would be like, I'm gonna go to the capital. So what did you do? Like, how did you pick the city? Did you close your eyes and hit a map? What did you do? Just share that.
Interesting, because I would show it to you, but my office is a wreck. I actually have a map of the United States with pins all over it that I kept through the whole process, and I still haven't taken it down. But it got to a place where, because of the nature of my work, I do travel sometimes with my job for conferences and things like that.
Okay.
And I found that I was going to a lot of different states. And, I would kind of say, well, hey, if I'm going to go to a state, maybe I can just tack on an extra day and do some shooting. So that was a lot of it. But then when I really got into the project, it became, like you said, kind of, let's look at this map and see what makes sense. Like if I was going to go to, let's say I had a conference in Missouri, in
Mm-hmm.
Kansas City. Well, Kansas City is not that far from Topeka, Kansas. And Topeka, Kansas is not that far from Iowa. And Iowa is not that far from Nebraska. So I would say, hey, I'm going to rent a car. I'm going to extend this trip and I'm going to hit all of these states. And before you know it, I was 30 states in. So it became, well, let's figure out how I'm going to do the rest of them. I
So
did
did you find like a tourist attraction, or you just went through the state and whatever caught your attention was what caught your attention and made it to the book?
Sometimes I did a lot of research, and it's funny because I just recently, I didn't throw them away. I relocated them. I have kind of the visitor's guides, the visitor's guides you get when you go to a different location.
Mm-hmm.
I have one from every state, I'm sure. I have one from every state, but any city that I was in, I would grab a visitor's guide and, find out what landmarks are out there, or what state parks, or, what national parks. So I would do the research that way. I would, jump on Google Maps and jump on the internet. And if I knew I was going to a city, I would say, well, hey, what are some of the things that these cities are known for? And that's kind of how we figure out. Or sometimes I would just, like I said, land in the city and figure it out when I got there.
That is crazy cool. I'm guilty of that too. Every time I'm in a city, and as soon as I land and get my bag, I go right over in the airport and I'm like, I want this, I want this, I want this, I want this, I want this. Although I already have a list, it's just, there's always something else. Right,
Yep.
exactly. And it's just get off the touristy stuff. Some of the touristy stuff is cool, but there's just so much more. So with that project, and with you going through all of these states, what has been the most challenging shoot for you, whether it had to do with this project or something else?
I thank you for asking that question that way, because the question I always get is, well, what's your favorite state? And it changes every time I'm asked that. The most challenging thing in that project was, it was probably, again, deciding on the images, because I never went to a state and just brought back one image, So deciding on the images was probably the hardest thing. I had I had some really, really cool friends, and I know they got tired of me because I would send them images and say, hey, which one do you think? would be better? And well, I think I like this one for the book, but what do you like? Even with the book cover and some of the marketing materials I did, I would send them images and say, hey, I'm deciding on, if I don't use this for the book cover, I'm using this for this. But which one do you think? I can remember finalizing the book cover by sending it to 5 of my colleagues and saying, hey, I need you guys to vote, and whichever ones wins, because I'm tired of looking at both of them. But I remember that. So that's how the book cover was picked. And so again, culling those images and deciding is probably the hardest part, because you capture so much stuff, and you see so many things, and you see things you don't think you're going to see.
And like, what about the weather? How is that for you? I mean, because a lot of times people feel that the most ideal weather is just, whether it's early morning or it's sunset, that golden hour, that blue hour, clear skies. But, your project involved you traveling, going to different states. And yeah, there's like Tornado Alley somewhere in there, there's Texas and, all of that. And even the northern states.
Yeah.
Did you find yourself, in situations where like the weather was like, okay, this isn't, no, it's a tornado warning. Oh, and I only have 6 more hours to be here in the city.
Well, not necessarily a tornado warning, but I can tell you, and this kind of leads to, I guess this could be the most difficult thing. I drove from Arkansas to Mississippi. And it was, I may have had, like you said, maybe 18 hours in Mississippi. But as I was driving in, it was a torrential downpour. And I was driving into, I believe I was driving into Tunica.
Okay.
And I'm like, I am not going to get a picture, because it was really just like a barren road, like a 2-lane road all the way to the casino. In my mind, I was like, I'm just not going to get a picture. This is not going to work. This is not going to work. And I ended up staying at a casino, and I'm thinking, well, maybe I'll find something at the casino. Nothing, because of the weather. So that next morning, yeah, that next morning I got up and said, well, I'll just have to figure out a way back to Mississippi. Mm-hmm. But as I was driving out, it wasn't raining anymore, but it was still, just that muddy thing. Mm-hmm. But I happened to look over, and I saw and it ended up being the picture in the book, this silo just kind of sitting in the middle of nowhere. Mm. And it was just in the middle of this acres upon acres of grass. And I said, I can make something out of this. Mm. And that's probably the most impactful picture to me in this project, because I know how hard I had to work to get it. And it's probably my favorite. Even though I have friends from Mississippi, they're like, oh, you could have did way better. You could come back. We could take you a bunch of places. But capturing that really encompassed what this project was about for me.
That is so cool. Like just timing and how to be creative, because Mother Nature can flip the script at any moment. And it's like, oh, okay, what am I going to do? Yep. So that's so worked out. And, as we're talking about your traveling and going through state to state, or even just when you're out generally shooting, let's talk about gear, because, and you can, either share where, as far as with you traveling, because again, if you're hitting all these different states, it might be cold here. It might be 8 degrees here, so kind of step us through is like, what main gear items, and it doesn't have to be camera specific, but outside of camera, because we're going to take the camera, obviously we're going to take the lenses, but bags, or is there certain bag, jackets, shoes, are you hiking, what's the gear? What is your make sure that you have when you are out?
Well, I'm one of those that probably bring way too much stuff with me. So I try to, you try to plan for everything. You try to plan for everything. I mean, you're not necessarily going to worry about bringing a coat if you're going to Arizona in July. So you don't have to necessarily worry about bringing a coat. However,
Like
if you're
sunscreen.
right, but if you're going to, let's say, Denver in October-ish, you're probably going to have to layer. It was when I went to Alaska, and I know you recently went to Alaska as well.
I know,
It
and
really
I
all
hardly
about
post
layering.
anything. I don't even think anybody know I went to Alaska.
Well, I know I'm still waiting for those pictures, but
This is about you right now.
I know. But you learn to layer. So it was everything from the puffy jacket to shorts, and I was there for about 10 days, and I wore everything from shorts to the puffy jacket.
Is there
And
any particular jacket that you prefer over the other? Because because we're outdoors, and a lot of people, I've seen photographers, and I'm like, what you got on? You gonna need a little bit more than that.
you're gonna die. Well, and there's nothing specific yet. Look, as I'm not gonna say this should be the goal for photographers, but I would love some sponsorship. So let's send me some stuff and find out what we should, what should we be wearing. So I'm
North
not
Face, REI, holla
right.
at us.
Exactly. Columbia, REI, Patagonia, all of you guys need to talk to us. But there's nothing. I don't have a particular brand
Okay.
yet, but I can be persuaded. I don't have a particular brand. I go for comfort. I can tell you I'm a sweatpants person. I wear sweatpants a lot when I'm shooting, because I might end up on the ground rolling around, and if something happens to the sweatpants, I can just throw them away. So but I don't have a particular brand of gear that I have to wear, as long as it's comfortable, as long as it keeps me safe.
Okay.
And if I'm hiking, I don't sprain an ankle. I'm fine.
So talking about hiking, shoes, do you, again, I've seen people who have been on the trail with, some people say sneakers, I say tennis shoes, whichever. And I'm like, what you got on?
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
because there may be times when you're on a hike and you're at these different states, and you take a trail and it might be dry, but you have to cross like
Mm-hmm.
some water. So what do you do in a situation like that with your shoes?
Well, and I do normally, if I know I'm going anywhere where I may hike, I'll wear my hiking shoes. I have been looking into some waterproof boots recently. Um, I think I have a trip coming up in a couple of weeks, and I think I'm going to go ahead and get those before I go, because I have a feeling I'm going to be somewhere where there's water or at least snow. So I have been looking into that. I pack socks a lot of socks.
Wool
I
socks or cotton?
both,
Okay.
both. I tend to I'll keep an extra pair of socks in my bag. So let's say I go somewhere and end up in some water, then I can at least change my socks.
Mm-hmm.
I'll keep those in my camera bag. That's one of the few things that I will say I keep in my bag. But I've been fortunate. I haven't had too many issues. I'm going to knock on some wood when I find it. Keep it that way.
Darn, Angela, here I am on my trip, and I'm in a
You
foot
get a
of
text
water.
message.
Like, after this interview, I suggest you get on Amazon. But as you just mentioned, your bag, talk about your backpack. You have a favorite backpack, and with you being out in the different elements, does it have a rain jacket? Is it waterproof? What do you look for to have that backpack for what you do?
Well, the bag that I'm using currently, and I believe I did have this bag when we hung out, was my think tank bag. I am actually thinking about getting the larger version of it, because I absolutely love it. I can't remember the actual model number,
Mm-hmm.
but it does have a rain jacket. And I've kind of become kind of a think tank geek recently, because I have that bag. I have the aviator airport bag that I use when I'm traveling and flying. I have a little sling bag that I use if I'm just going to take one lens with me if I'm shooting locally.
Mm-hmm.
So I've become a little bit of a think tank geek, I think, recently. But yes, I do believe that you should have a rain jacket for your bag. if you have nothing else, or if you need to make one, if you need to just go buy some plastic bags and put it, because you never know what's going to happen. If you're out somewhere and it starts raining, you just never know.
They're like, no, just drench me, but not the bag.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Is there other gear that you have? You know, I'm also thinking, like, as far as like being on the road, you know, going from state to state. I don't know about you, but I get hungry. So, do you carry? You know, do you carry? I can't think of the name. Where? Oh, anyway, you know the like the camping stove or the where you can boil water or coffee. What do you?
I,
What do
I
you
don't, I don't, you know, so here's the thing. I admit to this. I'm a little bit bougie when it comes to, being out in nature. I'm going to stay in a hotel. I haven't made it to the place where I'm doing the overnight camping trip. I haven't gotten there yet, although I am seriously considering um, doing some glamping. And I know that sounds crazy coming from me, but I'm seriously considering doing it because I've seen some locations that they're just like hotels. So I probably would do that, but the whole, trying to sleep in the car, and no, I'm not there yet. I'll get up just extra early and get to where I need to get, because I'm gonna
Mhm.
get me a good meal, and I'm gonna have some food in the car, not cooking outside. I'm not doing any of that right now.
You're like, no, mm-mm. Yeah, because I was curious because there are some pretty there's miles upon miles in some of the states that where you're going from city to city, and you'll see the sign where it says you better get your gas now because it's
Now,
gonna be 100
absolutely.
miles.
But my favorite sign is that this is the last rest area for 79 miles.
Right, it's like you better stop. You might not think you need to stop, but you better stop.
Better do it anyway. I agree. I definitely agree with that.
So and with that being said, um not necessarily cooking, but when you're out and you rent that car, do you also, have in your mind, I need to have, certain snacks in the car, you know, water, beverages. Do you grab that when you're, while you're going from city to city, or, how do you plan for that?
Well, normally, so for me, if I know I'm going to do a long drive, that first, if I can't find a Walmart, because I'm a Walmart fan, I'm still a Walmart fan, so I'll go to a Walmart and stock up on my waters and stuff like that. And it's funny because for a lot of my West Coast trips, you couldn't find Walmart, you could find Target, so I just had to go to Target and do the same thing. But
Mhm.
just the things that I need to have in the car, but for the most part, they're in the car. I may, like, I'll throw some water in my bag if I know I'm going to be on an extended hike, and maybe some nuts or some candy or something just to kind of tide me over. But I'm
And do
not
you book your
gonna
hotels like in advance, or you'll say,
add.
I'm gonna be here, I'm gonna do this state for 8 hours. To get to the next state, yeah, I'm gonna book the hotel there.
Yeah, well, I actually do a lot of that stuff in advance. So, if there's one tip that I would give anyone who wants to do landscape photography, is become a member of a hotel brand. Because I can tell you, and this is not necessarily a shameless plug, but if they want to, they can sponsor me as well, because I stay at Marriott at every opportunity. And I do that for multiple reasons, but I can tell you at least twice a year, I'm able to plan a trip where I'm not paying for any hotels.
Hmm.
The trip that I'm going on in the next couple of weeks, I'll be gone for the better part of 7 days, but I'm only paying for one night in a hotel, and I'm staying in a different state every night.
Well, I guess so. For somebody that has hit all the states, you built up some nice points.
Yeah, and I use them. And hotel points, air points, and I think one thing that, like I said, this is a tip that I would give anyone: try to stick with a brand and be consistent with them and build those points. Same thing with airlines. Try to find a airline
You froze.
that you can be consistent with. Yep. I'm coming back. There we go. Yep.
Okay.
But find an airline and a hotel that you can be consistent with, because those points become an advantage for you.
All right. So I got to ask this question. Favorite airline?
American. American. And a lot of that is where I'm at, because Charlotte is a hub for American.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been able to pretty much get anywhere that I wanted to on American for the last 2 to 3 years.
Okay. So with that being said, the pandemic has not really affected your traveling.
It did. I mean, when we first, we kind of first went on the lockdown, I was miserable, like a lot of us, because you really didn't know what you could and couldn't do. I had a goal the year that the pandemic hit to fly somewhere every month. And I got through January and February. And once March hit, I think my last trip was early March. And then I had to cancel everything from mid-March. I don't think I did any more travel until about November, maybe December.
Yeah.
So it was a lot. But I'm fortunate in the sense that living in North Carolina, there are so many things that I can just drive to. So I spent a lot of time on the Blue Ridge Mountains and things like that. And I would drive to Atlanta. So there are places where I can drive where it's not a monumental, it's 3-4 hours. I can get to places where I can get out in nature and get some good material, get some good images.
So I know you have a trip coming up, but I want to ask this question: what is the most dreamed of trip that you want to take? If money was no object, where would you be like, okay, American, first class ticket, please, to
Antarctica? And I don't even know if I can fly into Antarctica, but Antarctica, I tell my friends, I'm like, hey man, I'm planning on going to Antarctica one day. You guys coming? They all look at me like, no, we're not going with you. So
really? Why not? Are they photographers?
No, that's part of the reason, but it's too cold for them too. So, but I want to go to Antarctica. I was really, really, really trying to work out Iceland this year. Mm-hmm. I was really, and I think we talked, and I said to you, I got some surprises for you. I may have a surprise for you. I was really working on Iceland, but I couldn't make the dates work because I needed about 8 days and I just couldn't make it work. But that's definitely on the radar for the next year or so.
I don't even want to talk about my list. So, are there any other tips that you have for, I know you had mentioned early on in our interview that you also teach students photography. But, aside from, and I'm sure you give them plenty of tips. But for our viewers, what are some of the advice or tips that you would have for them? Especially when it comes to one, either getting into photography, but also two, getting outdoors.
Shoot as much as you possibly can. You're never going to improve if you don't practice. You're never ever going to improve if you don't practice. So as much as you can shoot. Look at your own images, look at other people's images, look at where they're shooting, travel, meet people, meet other photographers. Do not be ashamed or afraid to ask questions. I'll ask anyone, how did you do that? There were certain things that I was trying to learn how to do, and it was like, hey, why not just ask someone who's doing it, how'd you do it? You may not always get an answer, but you may get an answer. How we met, hey, reach out and say, hey, I'm going to be in your city. Can you recommend any locations that I should shoot? You make me to Angela and she'll say, don't even worry about it. I'm coming to get you. Again, and
I don't do that for everybody. I check you out. We'll have this interview and I'll have an inbox full of 100 people.
But just being able to connect with people, even if you do it by going to conferences, however you do it, just do it. But the number one would just be shooting. Like, shoot as much as you possibly can.
Okay. And what about getting outside? People get in their head, it's always that fear.
Yeah.
People, they see, and I've heard it from men, I've heard it from women. When I post something, like I had posted an image and I was in the woods. So I'm getting comments like, were you scared? Was there a bear? I'm like, if y'all don't leave it alone.
Well, what I would say is if you have those type of fears, find places that you're comfortable. I have images that I'm on the top of a building in Cincinnati in the observation tower, and I'm like 110 stories up and I'm shooting off the building. That's fearful for a lot of people. I was comfortable. I knew where the ground was, but so, I was, find things, find places you're comfortable shooting. Don't be afraid to stretch yourself. But if you really are truly interested in becoming a good photographer, those fears will subside, because it's really, or at the very least, you're going to find someone to come with you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
True. And one other question, because I definitely want to make sure that I asked you this question. Being in this genre, even for me, there was no one for me to identify with. There was not a woman where I can say, oh my gosh, I love your landscape photography, a woman of color. And what does it mean for you, when it comes to seeing more people of color in this genre, where we can identify with? Because, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm sure when you're out, how often do you see someone that you can identify with?
It's rare, and I commend you ladies for starting this group. I'm uber jealous. Not jealous that I'm not a female, but I'm uber jealous that you guys, are doing this, and even, I've gone to photography conferences and things like that, and you don't see a lot of African Americans that do landscape photography. You guys are taking a proactive step towards creating that community, and I commend you guys, because I think a lot of us do this kind of stuff, but we, like you said, we just don't know who to and how to connect. So the work that you guys are doing is awesome.
Thank you. Appreciate it. And that's why we're like, you know what? We got some men we know. Let's bring them. Because we are such a small percentage in this genre. And I think it's important for us to be able to become those mentors for the next generation, and show people that, yeah, you get outside. Well, we already know that I'd be outside.
Mm-hmm.
But there's just so much to life, and get comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Exactly.
So before, I bring this interview to a close, I want you to, let everybody know where they can get your book, and how do they go about if they want an autographed copy of your book, and and do you have another project on the horizon for us?
Well, I'll start with this book. A lot, and actually pretty much anything that I'm doing now, you can get from my website, which is JB Photography, and that's jbphotography2016.com. You can get the book there. We can definitely work on the autograph piece. If you want me to sign it and send it to you, I have no problem doing that. And that's how you can reach me. You can reach me on Instagram at JB Photography 2016, and also on Facebook. I'm trying to convince myself to do a little more on Twitter. I just haven't done it yet. I need to. I just haven't done it yet.
Or TikTok.
I'm not ready for TikTok. I'll be honest. I'm just not. Maybe one day.
We'll have to talk about that later.
Maybe one day. So from a project perspective, I've been kind of working on a similar project just in the state of North Carolina, as North Carolina has 100 counties. So the goal is to get a picture from each county. I don't think I'm not necessarily going to spend a night in each county, but to get an image from each county. I did start on that about last year, but with COVID and just how hectic things have been, I've only gotten a couple of images to this point that I feel like are project ready, so to speak.
Okay.
I do a yearly calendar that I have out now. And I'm the type of person where because I just love to shoot, sometimes I just want to get out and shoot. And if it's something I can use, great. If not, I'll find something else to do that I can use.
There we have it. So again, I am so thankful that you were available for this interview. Like I said, when we met, it was just like we were just cracking up and just out having a good time, even to the point where you're like, I'm done right now. I need to sleep. But it's something for us to be out there, and for you to have that book and hit off 50 states. It's not often that you talk with somebody, especially an African American, is like, yeah, I've been there. Oh, I've been there too. Oh, they got great pizza. So keep doing what you're doing. It's just so awesome. And it was such a pleasure meeting you and being able to have the honor to go out and do some shooting. It's just funny how things happen. You reached out to some people here in San Diego, and hey, fate was like, yeah, I can go take pictures. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Andrew. I mean, again, you guys keep up the good work. I look forward to the great things that you guys are doing. I look forward to us shooting again. We gotta plan something.
Yes, we do. All right. So thank you guys for watching the video. Please make sure that you comment, you like, subscribe, share, check out John's website, check out his Instagram page. We'll go ahead and also put links to his contact information and things in the description. So again, thank you all for watching this, and we will see you all on our next Photog Talk.